What is going on, YouTube Nation? I'm back. Chris Fearson here with you now live. I was tinkering with some things. I was thinking about maybe moving my Tracking the Madness series, which is what this is, by the way. If you haven't seen the title, it's bracket number 3 of the year. I was thinking of moving this to Periscope. Unfortunately, I could not get the live stream to work on my phone. So now we are here with my third bracket projection of the year. We are getting so close to March and the madness. It is so exciting. I'm going to try really hard, guys, to make more videos on a frequent basis every single week. My work schedule has been nuts. A lot going on, so I'm going to really try. So forgive me for the lack of time to do a video back between 1 and 2. I had to post the last projection on my Facebook page, and I did provide a link to that. But I found this now, so I'm really excited. This one actually is working, so yay, yay technology. So I'm just again thankful for you guys for your support, for all the subscribers I'm getting. I'm up to, I think, 31 now, which is awesome. So thank you guys so much for that. This is always a very popular. I love seeing you guys' comments on your teams that are in the field, your last teams in, your first teams out, where you have teams seated. We had a lot of debate last year on some different teams, so all exciting stuff. But I'm ready to dive right in and share my recent projection with you guys. I just now put this together. I've even had debate with a lot of other people on other teams, like where some teams should fall, what seed lines they're at. And it has been crazy of late with some of these games that I've watched over the past, especially the past couple nights, especially in the Big Ten, where I am, Big Ten country. Iowa falling to Penn State. Last night, Minnesota getting its first Big Ten win of the season and knocking off Maryland. Penn State even beating IU as well, currently now leads the Big Ten Conference. So it has just been a so far wild season. It's been dangerous to be the number 1 team in the country because of the fact that for at least 5 number 1 teams, if not more, have lost at this point throughout the season. So it has just been a real challenge for teams and to really stay consistently hot. So there's been a lot of moving we had to do. There's some teams this week that have snuck their way into the field, is safe with some big wins, and there was other teams that have kind of fallen and hit the skids a little bit. And I'm going to talk about all of that. But let me go ahead and get into this here with my third bracket projection. That's what you're here for. That's what the title says anyway. So let's just go ahead and dive right in. I also the first thing I did was basically I took my seed sheet here, got all the current automatic bid leaders. If you guys remember, I don't really do my brackets based on like further out into the future. What I do is I look at how things are right now, and that's kind of the big thing. If the season ended today, this is how I would see the field. So that's really how I'm looking at it right now. So I have currently all the current conference leaders as receiving the 32 automatic bids, and then I have the current teams I have as safe as at large. And what I consider a team safe basically is that I have them above the 10 seed line. I have them in the single-digit seeding line right now. So that's really how I have them right now. And then I have my bubble teams right now that are currently as seeded as the 10 seed or lower. So that's really how I really look at things. And then I just kind of look at RPIs, look at their body of work, look at a whole different set of factors and numbers in determining how to seed the teams. Then I place them into the bracket by region. So that's really, and I try to do kind of the same thing that the committee does, try to avoid, rematches as much as possible, try to avoid conference matchups so further on down the line, try to avoid placing a team, not really, like, for example, I don't, and please someone correct me if this is wrong, but I don't think Villanova can play in the East region this year because that would be in Philadelphia, which I think is either like on their campus or too close to their campus. So if that's wrong, please someone by all means in a comment correct me. But that's why I didn't put Villanova in the East region, because I thought, okay, it's in Philadelphia. I think it's on their campus. I think they can't play there. So there's some situations where you can't place a team in a region because it is either on their campus or in a geographic region close to their campus. Now, the committee tries to place teams, geographically as close as possible without putting them on their home campus and giving them an unfair advantage. So that's what I've been trying to do, sorting this out. So, yeah, that's basically how I do it. So now let's go ahead and share it. So we'll start off with the Midwest region in Chicago. Since I could not put Villanova in the East, which I don't think that I can, and again, please someone correct me if I'm wrong on that. I put them in the Midwest region. Villanova is my overall #1 seed. Villanova has been playing extremely well of late. They have really blown out some really good teams in Big East play. And I know someone out there is probably going to think, oh, what all about Villanova's early exits in the past? And yes, that is very troubling. And you're going to be really, really hesitant to put Villanova, if you're doing a bracket, into the second weekend or even further than that because of their early exits. But they are playing really well right now. And I've been quite impressed watching them and seeing their scores over these past few weeks. So I do have them as an overall #1 at 23-3. I have them playing right now the winner of one of the first 4 games. And yes, it is called the first 4 again. The NCAA changed their wording back to the way it should have been from the very start. So this is now the first 4. So now we're actually going to have, after that, we're going to have first round, second round, or like round of 64, round of 32, the way it should be, not second round, third round garbage they were throwing at us. No, it's called the first 4 again. So I have Villanova taking on the winner of the game between Hampton and Wagner. Hampton currently leading the MEAC at 15-9. I watched them play a couple nights ago against Morgan State. They are the defending MEAC tournament champs as well. And Wagner is locked right now in a 4-way battle in the Northeast Conference. They're battling with Fairleigh Dickinson, who they beat by 20 last night, Mount St. Mary's, and St. Francis of Pennsylvania. Now, all 3 of those teams lost, so now Wagner has a game ahead of each of those teams. So Wagner right now 17-9. They're a game ahead of 3 teams in the Northeast for that lead. 8-9 matchup, very intriguing one here. Syracuse out of the ACC, 18-9. I have as an 8 seed right now, and Syracuse for me, certainly not safe by any stretch, but they have been playing well of late. And I think Syracuse is going to be a hot topic team for discussion as well, because of the fact that, how much is the committee going to take into account the fact that the team struggled when Jim Boeheim was suspended for those 9 games? Are they going to really take that into account, or are they going to look more into the fact that, okay, they were playing well when he was there? So they're probably going to consider that in some respect, but how much of a weight, how heavy, I should say, are they going to rely on the fact that they struggle without Jim Boeheim there? So, but right now, I think Syracuse is safely in. I have them taking on Temple. The Owls currently leading the American at 16-9. Overall, I believe they're like 9-3 or 10-3 in the conference. And the fact that Southern Methodist this year is ineligible, it really helps the other teams, say like a Temple or even a UConn or a Cincinnati or even a Tulsa that's within close range of first place in the American, to get this automatic bid. So right now, the fact that they're not in right now, Temple to me leading the conference would get the nod right now in the American. So right now I have Syracuse and Temple 8-9 in the Midwest. My 5-12. 5 seed is the Purdue Boilermakers, my alma mater and one of my definite favorite teams, 21-6 out of the Big Ten. Purdue is just such a fun team to watch when they play well on nights, especially when they're at home in Mackey Arena. You got the size guys inside with A.J. Hammonds, Isaac Haas, even now Caleb Swanigan, the entertaining freshman. You got the outside guys like, with Kendall Stevens, Vince Edwards playing well, the Johnny Hill, the transfer they got. They really have just a bunch of talent on this roster, and they're just so entertaining to watch. They really only have the one bad loss this year was to Illinois, which I still can't explain that loss, by the way. If you ask me, hey, why did Purdue lose to Illinois? I don't know. I mean, I really couldn't tell you how they lost that game to Illinois, because Illinois is pretty bad. So, but again, it explains the wackiness of the Big Ten. That's really what it boils down to. Like any given night, apparently, in the Big Ten, anybody can beat anybody. It's that crazy parity. So, I have Purdue taking on Arkansas Little Rock, the number 12 seed out of the Sun Belt. I thought they were honestly going to lose last night to Georgia State. They were trailing for most of that game in the first half, and then all of a sudden they finally turned it on in the second. It was still kind of an ugly win. I think it was only by 8 points, like 54-46 or 57-49, something like that. But they found once again a way to win. They're 23-3 overall. So maybe not a really dangerous 12 seed or double-digit seed team, but certainly one that if they can shut down an offensive team, they might get at least a little bit of fits to for maybe a half or so. But I don't really see them making like a big splash in the tournament. But as long as they win the Sun Belt tournament, they should be they will be in the field if they win the tournament, obviously. But right now, they're, I think, far and away the best team in the Sun Belt. And then the 4-13, I have Iowa State out of the Big 12, 18-8 overall. The Cyclones, always entertaining to watch. George Niang is a joy of a player to watch play, especially when the Cyclones play at home. The so-called Hilton Magic, it is very entertaining to watch that team compete. I have them taking on Akron. The Zips leading the MAC right now at 21-5. They do actually crack the top 50 in RPI, which is very saying something. This conference, the MAC right now was wide open for a while, and actually Northern Illinois was leading it for a while, and then I think for a week Kent State led it, and now Akron's leading. So it's just been kind of which team is going to take on that top spot. And actually Akron's been playing quite well even when they weren't leading the conference for most of the year. So so right now they are the team in the MAC driver's seat right now. Bottom half of the Midwest region, this 6-11 matchup, oh, this would be juicy. This would be a really fun matchup here. Utah out of the Pac-12 at 20-7, taking on Wichita State 20-7 out of the Valley. That would be, to me, really entertaining. I mean, Utah is a fun possession team up and down to watch, but Wichita State with that defense, they get after you. I mean, and if Van Vliet is healthy, if Baker is still playing well, Wichita State will be a challenge to anybody come tournament time. And I know they've had a couple ugly losses late in the season. Lost to Illinois State. They lost somehow to Northern Iowa recently, and again, I was head scratching over that loss as well. But when Wichita State is good, they are good. They are really on it, and I think any team that Wichita State is going to draw in the tournament is going to be should be a little bit afraid. I'm just going to put it that way. I think they're going to be a very tough out, and we've seen Wichita State make deep runs in the tournament before, even of course the Final Four run a couple years back. So it is going to be very intriguing to see what Wichita State does in the postseason this time around. Then the 3-14, I have Iowa on the 3 line out of the Big Ten, 20-6. I had to drop them, obviously, a seed line with that loss to Penn State. And I know Penn State did just crack the RPI top 100 this week, but at the time, it was still considered a bad loss for Iowa. Now, not so much, but still, I had to kind of move some teams, shift some teams around on the lines, especially after some other teams got some big victories. So that's why I dropped Iowa to the 3 line. They're still good. They're still safely in the field this year, 20-6 out of the Big Ten. I have them taking on UAB, the 14 seed out of Conference USA, 21-5. UAB again, and we saw what they did again in the tournament last year, pulling off the upset in the first round of Iowa State, and now again could be in that same seeding situation. But the way they've been playing, they've clearly again been the favorite in Conference USA. And I know they've had a couple games where they've struggled. They've had some tough outs with some teams in Conference USA play. But above all, they've been the best team there. So it'd be interesting to see what happens with them this time around if they can once again find that good play and against a team and play really well to potentially win a game. 7-10, I have Providence out of the Big East, 19-8. Providence looked like earlier in the year a team that really was going to be safely in the field, but they've had a couple losses of late, so they're starting to drop on the seed line a little bit. So that's why they're in the 7 situation now, but still for now safely in the field. I haven't taken on Oregon State out of the Pac-12, and as we go on, as I reveal more of the bracket, you're going to see a lot of Pac-12 teams in this field. The Pac-12 really, top to bottom, is probably is, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, it probably is the top RPI conference in the country. Maybe the ACC and the Big Ten or SEC are close, but I think the Pac-12, because I think I have at least 7 teams in the field from the Pac-12, if not maybe 8. I think I'm pretty close to that. So many teams in the top 50 RPI, it's ridiculous. But Oregon State right now is one of my last 4 buys in the field as a 10 seed right now with a 15-9 record. Now, Oregon State's resume is pretty impressive. Now, they do have 6 top 50 wins, but here's the thing. Most of those have come against those fellow kind of middling or close to top Pac-12 teams themselves. So they are good wins on paper. But you've also got to have good wins, outside the conference, beat your top-heavy guys, like beat your Oregon. If they beat Oregon, then I think Oregon State's going to be in a really, really better position than what they are now. I think, I don't know if they've played Oregon yet or not, But if they eventually get a win where they could beat like an Oregon or say even an Arizona, then I think they're going to be a lot better position now than what they are currently. So they're still kind of hovering, I think, at around 500 in the Pac-12, that's why they're on the 10 line, and their RPI is like at 36, so close to that kind of 40-50 range. But for the most part right now, Oregon State I think is in a lot better position than say some of the other teams below them on the 10-11 line. Let's just put it that way. They're the safest 10 seed right now. Let's just put it that way. And then the 215, I put Duke on the 2 line, and as much as it hurts me to put Duke on the 2 line, they've earned it. I mean, Duke has looked a lot better ever since that slump that they were in for most of the season. People were talking, oh, Duke's going to be a bubble team. Oh, they're not going to make the tournament. Oh, no. Well, I don't think that was ever really a possibility. I honestly, Duke's too good. Duke is too good to be Duke, and Grayson Allen to them is God, and in some way, and that's why he's the most hated new white person. I read an article, by the way, and I might have pointed this out on my Twitter. I read an article on ESPN, and they were mentioning, how is Grayson Allen the next hated white Duke player? I think we all can agree that he is. But they were mentioning guys like Christian Laettner and JJ Redick and all these other guys from Duke that were hated, like Wojciechowski, all these other guys that played for Duke. Well, they forgot a name. They missed one. Kyle Singler. I freaking hated Kyle Singler. I mean, Kyle Singler, and I watched him play in person when Purdue played Duke at Mackey Arena, and Singler was the freaking one who was, wagging his finger after hitting a 3, like, no, no, no. And, they're all doing the slapping the floor stupid thing that Duke players do. And, and it's like, they forgot Kyle Singler. So that kind of burned me up a bit. But I got to give Duke some credit. They went to the Dean Dome. They beat North Carolina. A game really at North Carolina should have won. But they let it get away. Duke was shorthanded. They'd lost Matt Jones to a pretty gnarly ankle injury. So they were down to pretty much all 5 guys, if not barely 6. And somehow they still managed to win that game because North Carolina was jacking up 3-pointers late in that game, which was frustrating to watch. They were, and then last sequence, and I called out on Twitter also for this. Roy Williams, why did you not call timeout? I mean, really, why did you not call timeout in that situation? You had three timeouts in your pocket that you could have used, and you didn't. You just said, nope, just run the offense. Go. Set up something. Go do something. Go score the winning basket. Yay, Carolina. Go for it. And you and your player puts up this stupid shot, and it gets blocked, and it's not even freaking close. And it was painful, to say the least. It was painful for me to watch. So, but at the end of the day, I got to give them some credit. That's why I put them up on the 2 line ahead of Carolina, where they should be. So I have them at 20-6 out of the ACC. That's my mini. I know, Duke, Carolina, Grant, whatever. I have them taking on Winthrop, currently leading the Big South, 19-7. They're in a little bit of a struggle with a couple teams there, a couple teams in the hunt, like Coastal Carolina. I think they actually beat in that game to take first place, so big win there for Winthrop. The Eagles usually come out of the Big South. It's usually either them or of late Coastal Carolina. So I think High Point's going to be a team that could contend the Big South tournament this year. UNC Asheville, another team that's in the hunt. So the Big South always tends to be an interesting conference tournament. So right now, Winthrop, though, currently has the upper hand there. All right, moving on to the East region in Philadelphia. Right now, I have Virginia there as the number 1 team there. It's the 4th number 1 seed, 21-5 out of the ACC. I have them taking on the winner of the first 4 game between Bucknell, 14-12 out of the Patriot League, and Texas Southern, currently leading, pretty much dominating the SWAC right now, as they have pretty much had the past couple years, actually. They are 12-12 overall right now, but I think they're either undefeated or have 1 loss in the SWAC, which is, again, impressive in and of itself. So, and you remember Bucknell a couple years ago, them and Belmont. I mean, they tend to pull upsets in the first round because of their 3-point shooting ability, and that's just really dangerous with certain teams. So big thing there for Bucknell and Belmont. I'll reveal later as well. We're gonna have them, but right now Bucknell, Texas Southern, first 4 game in the East region. 8-9. This would be a fun one as well. UConn playing well in the American, 19-7. They got their third top 50 RPI win of the season when they knocked off SMU last night. So big win for UConn, playing really, really well right now. Kevin Ollie, I got to admit, has done an outstanding job with Connecticut. So great things there for UConn, 19-7 on the year. Taking on Texas Tech. Texas Tech is one of those teams that has really been on the rise of late out of the Big 12. They are still barely below 500, and usually you'll find that the committee really rarely takes teams that are below 500, but you got to remember they also took Texas a couple years ago when they were 8-10 in conference play. So you just got to keep that in mind. Conference record really isn't that big a factor as you might think it is. So, but Texas Tech has played well of late. I believe now they have either 4 or 5 now top 50 victories, which is pretty much a solid resume for an NCAA tournament team. So Texas Tech right now on the 9 line as a safe team with a 16-9 record and playing very, very good Big 12 basketball right now. The 5-12, this one could also be, I think here's a potential, and I probably mentioned them before as a dark horse sleeper, but this could be one that could work here. Arizona is my 5 seed, 22-5. Right now, Arizona is leading the Pac-12 right now, that log jam that is the Pac-12 right now. 22-5 record right now. I haven't taken on Valparaiso out of the Horizon League. And again, I mentioned this on Twitter. I saw Valpo play in person this year when they played down at Terre Haute against Indiana State. And I tell you what, when Valpo is fully healthy and full cylinder strong, they are a very, very good basketball team. Alec Peters on that team is a joy to watch. They've got some other well-rounded, talented guys. And again, when Valpo is on, they play really, really well. They've had, again, a couple questionable losses this year, but you're going to have it on the road. I think they lost at Wright State recently on the road. So, you're going to have a couple hiccups in conference play from time to time if you don't play well on the road. But for the most part, they're a very strong team. They are a very good team in the Horizon League, and they've got talent. And I think they potentially could be one of those dark horse double-digit seeds that could win a game, or even maybe 2 if the right matchup falls to them in the bracket. So keep an eye on Valparaiso. And then the 4-13, I have Kentucky out of the SEC at 20-6. Man, the Cats have looked very impressive of late as well. They've been blowing out teams in the SEC, especially that 27-point destruction that they put on South Carolina recently was mighty impressive. They're now starting to really hit their peak potential, and they usually do this time of year. If they struggle early on in the year, then they really start turning it on come February, come March, kind of like Michigan State in a way. They're a team you do not want to mess with come postseason time. So they're looking good right now. And I haven't taken on Stony Brook, leading the America East 22-5 right now. Now, Stony Brook did have its first conference hiccup yesterday. They lost at Albany. And Albany always tends to be the team, it's either them or New Hampshire, that always tends to be the thorn in Stony Brook's side that kind of, doesn't really get them, that undefeated conference run anymore. So come tournament time, come the conference tournaments are coming up, if Stony Brook does not win, I would say probably either Albany or New Hampshire is going to be the team that kind of sneaks in there and really could potentially find the way to the NCAA tournament if Stony Brook doesn't win it. So just keep an eye on those teams, especially the Albany Great Danes, who have also had tournament experience before winning that conference tournament and getting in the field. So just keep that in mind when you think about the America East. But right now, Stony Brook's still leading the conference, even with that one hiccup. They are still my projection right now. 6-11, and again, on the 11 line, here's another conference champ. If they win, if they get in the tournament, that is going to be a scary out for any team that draws them. My 6th seed here is USC out of the Pac-12 at 19-7. But again, don't fall asleep on Monmouth. Monmouth, besides their entertaining bench, which has been just funny as all get out to watch, they have beaten some really good teams this year. They are a joy to watch. 22-5, again, out of the MAC, the AA MAC, not to confuse with the Mid-American. And tonight they play Iona. And I don't know if you guys remember, I'm sure you do, if you watched this game last time, the unfortunate ending to the Iona-Monmouth game last time where they had the big old fight and they had to separate people. And that was a high-scoring game, too, by the way, at Iona, at which Monmouth did win that game. But it was just, there was the big brawl afterwards. It got kind of crazy. So I'm sure tonight they're going to be really, watching and clamping down on stuff so it doesn't get too crazy at Monmouth tonight. So, and I believe that game is televised also, so I might be watching that one tonight for sure. So, but Monmouth is very entertaining to watch. They got some really good outside shooters, and they can put up points. So anybody that Monmouth draws is going to be, it should be very scared. Again, should be intimidated by Monmouth, because man, these Hawks, pun intended here, these Hawks can fly. These Hawks can fly, and then they are fun to watch. So just keep your eye on Monmouth. My 314, Maryland out of the Big Ten, 22-5. Boy, Maryland, we thought Maryland had it all. I mean, we thought Maryland was on a clear path to the Big Ten title. Melo Trimble playing well, but then they lose Diamond Stone. He didn't play last night, and now all of a sudden those chances are very much in jeopardy, losing at Minnesota to a team that had lost 14 straight games. Just unbelievable how that can happen if you're Maryland. I mean, got to give credit to Minnesota. All the credit in the world to Minnesota, and good on them. And I don't know if you watched that interview with that senior from Minnesota. You need to watch that, because that nearly made me cry, because that kid, that senior, giving credit to his younger freshman, sophomore teammates, the tears, that's real emotion. I mean, that's real emotion right there. And I'm like, after I watched that, I'm like, good on you, Minnesota. You lose 14 straight games. You don't think, but yet you keep fighting night after night after night with a young team, and you got your one senior leader, and that was just awesome. So good on you, Minnesota. But now for Maryland, the Big Ten really winning the title regular season, it's going to be tough now, because I don't see Indiana and Iowa really, unless again they have another fluke loss, I don't see really them struggling anytime soon. So Maryland's going to have to find a way to shake this off and find a way to win games. So, but right now, I had to drop them a seed line because this loss to Minnesota. I had them on the 2, but then I had to drop them down because of this loss. So 22-5, but no guarantee right now to win the Big Ten regular season title. I have them taking on Yale. Yale right now running the table in the Ivy League, 17-5 record, 8-0 in the conference. I believe Yale plays tonight. They play Princeton. They play Princeton tonight, and Princeton is actually a top 50 RPI team. I believe they're 41 in the RPI right now, and they're very much in the hunt in the Ivy League. They're like 7-1, the game behind. So I think whoever wins that game tonight takes over first place in the Ivy League. So that's a big, big game tonight for Yale. I think Yale has one of the longest tournament droughts ever, outside of course of Northwestern, who's never ever been. I think Yale has one of the largest or longest droughts. So, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but it'd be so great to see that snapped if Yale were to get into the field. So they were battling with Harvard last year to get into the tournament, and Harvard beat them out. I think swept Yale twice to get in. So it'd be great to see if Yale were to pull that off this year. 7-10 matchup, Baylor out of the Big 12. Baylor is always a tough out whenever they play. Always a talented team there with Baylor. 19-7 overall. I'm taking on Pitt out of the ACC. Pitt at 17-7. Pitt has really been a mystery this year. Pitt is kind of a head scratcher. Played well early in the year. Played Purdue really close early in the year as well, and they're thought to be a top 25 team. And now all of a sudden, they've struggled against some teams. They've played, they've lost big time to some teams they really should have beat. So it's been kind of an odd year for Pitt. So Pitt really much is kind of very, very bubbly right now, but they are on that 10 line right now. A couple of losses, especially if you suffer a bad loss to a team you should really beat, and then Pitt's really going to be kind of in a very precarious situation, especially if they go to 2 losses or 17-9 or maybe an 18-9. Then you're really talking about a very kind of shaky situation, internal earthquake, just kind of worry. So Pitt right now though is safe, but again, not as safe as an Oregon State, not as safe as some other teams right now. Then my 215, Xavier. Speaking of another entertaining team to watch, have you watched Xavier this year? Oh my gosh, Trevon Blewett. Forgive me if I pronounce the name wrong. He is a stud. I mean, he is just so entertaining to watch. I remember when he played here, because he's an Indiana kid. I remember when he played at Park Tudor. Oh my gosh, he was just so entertaining to watch. He is the star-making player for Xavier. 23-3 this year. I mean, their scores, their points are putting up every night. They're blowing out teams every night. It is just fun to see Xavier play. So, great team. They could really make a lot of noise this year as well. I have them taking on Stephen F. Austin, the 15th seed right now, out of the Southland Conference, 19-5. The Lumberjacks, again, running the table right now in the Southland Conference, unblemished. They are perfect right now in the Southland. And even though they had that long winning streak snapped a couple years ago, or maybe even earlier this year, they still play very, very well. They, of course, made some noise a couple years ago. It was either last year or a year before that when they were a 12 seed, and they upset VCU in that thrilling overtime game that was so fun to watch. So they could certainly, it'd be a tough matchup here if they play Xavier, but again, if anyone could be a 15, it could be a surprise. It might be the Lumberjacks of Stephen F. Austin. All right, moving on to the South region here. My top seed here is the Kansas Jayhawks. It's setting up again like they could win the Big 12 again. And I don't know if it's like, 17, 18 straight this time. How many conference titles is in a row for Kansas now, but they just keep finding a way. And even on nights where they tend to struggle, they beat some good teams. They win at home. Winning in the Fog, never easy. Or near impossible. They're just that good. So 21-4 on the year, number one here in the South region. I am taking on North Florida, the Atlantic Sun, the Ospreys, 19-10 record, and they laid a smackdown last night. They were playing NJIT, the New Jersey Institute of Technology, who was actually tied for first with them in the Atlantic Sun. And oh my gosh, it was like 106-71, something like that. And this team can hit three-pointers like it's nobody's business. I think they had a record earlier in the year for they said a school record with 18 three-pointers in a game, something like that. They were lighting it up, and I'm blown away. Is this the new Florida Gulf Coast in the Atlantic Sun? Not exactly Dunk City, but Trey City. That's what North Florida is, Trey City. From here on out, they are Trey City. And I tell you what, that is just I'm just looking at that score going dang! It's they're putting up points in bunches and threes, and oh my gosh. So North Florida, again, if this is this crazy year, if this could be the year where a 16 knocks off a 1, this could be it. And really, when you think about it, North Florida, if they're 16, they could be the team that does it. They really could be the team that pulls that off. And Kansas, we've seen Kansas before fall to these higher-seeded teams. Remember Belmont? Remember when they lost to Bucknell, Bradley, Northern Iowa? Even when they were a higher-seeded team, not double-digit, but remember when they lose to these teams? It can't happen. So Kansas has a thing for that. So I don't know why, but they do. So if it could be anybody, it could be the Ospreys. Trey City, North Florida. 8-9 matchups here, speaking of Florida. Florida out of the SEC, 17-9 is my number 8 seed here. Florida, a decent team. Nothing really flashy about Florida, but, they win the games you're supposed to win, and they lose the games that, like the Kentuckys and the higher-up teams they're expected to lose. So nothing really flashy about Florida, but a strong RPI, a strong strength of schedule. Florida should be okay at the end of the day. If they get to 20 wins, Florida's going to be okay. So, and I have them taking on St. Joseph's, and they are right now leading the Atlantic 10, 22-4. And a lot of people further down the road, probably about a couple weeks ago, said, oh, St. Joseph's is a bubble team. They have no top 50 victories. They're boring. They're on the cusp of being out of the field. They're nothing. Well, I had St. Joseph's in the field all along, and I didn't have even as a bubble team. I had them as safe. I've watched St. Joseph's play a couple times this year, and I watched them play just last night against Dayton, and against a ranked Dayton team that has been the class of the A10 this year. And oh my gosh! And even though it was at home, St. Joseph's just dominated that game from start to finish. And yeah, Dayton made a late rally, but St. Joe's had that game in the bag. And you notice there after that win, they didn't storm the floor because they expected to win that game. St. Joe's expects to win games, and now they got 3 top 50 wins. with that one, two of them that are team looking like better teams, better wins every day. St. Joe's is legit, at least in my mind, and now they're leading the A10, and I think they will be a potentially scary lower seeded team because they are going to be a tough out. I really do. I wouldn't be surprised if they beat Florida in that matchup because of just what I saw last night when they, or a couple nights ago, when they beat Dayton. So very impressive. 5-12. Here's where I have Indiana on the 5 line right now, 21-6. Once again, the Hoosiers leading the Big Ten, thanks to the Iowa loss, thanks to the Maryland loss. Indiana is moving up in the seed line, and for a while we kind of had them kind of in the lower dredges of things, like on the 6-7 line. We were wondering, okay, is Indiana actually really safely in the field? Even though they they have some good top 50 wins, they also have a couple really ugly losses to UNLV and that Penn State loss. What do we make of Indiana? Well, I think for now, Indiana is going to be okay. I think, if they keep winning games, if they keep, leading the Big Ten, they keep staying at the forefront of the Big Ten, I think IU is going to be okay. Now, they have a big game with my Boilermakers this week. So that's going to be, I think, really a telling game as to where they fall on the season. Right now, I have Purdue and IU both on the 5 line. So it's going to – so I think that game – whoever wins it is probably going to move up a seed line, or maybe IU will drop a line if they lose, or, I don't think Purdue will drop that much. But I think if IU loses that game, maybe you slide them to a 6. But if they win, I think you can at least justify moving them up maybe at least to the 4 line. If not, you don't have them on the 5 line already like I do. Maybe you keep them there or put them at least right below it as the highest 5 seed right now. So that game's going to have a lot of intrigue to it. Let's just say that. But right now, that's where I have IU on the 5 line at 21-6. I have them taking on the winner of one of these first 4 games. And this region here in the South is where I have my first 4 teams, my last 4 teams in the field. So that's where I have these teams. I have Tulsa right now in the field out of the American. Tulsa pretty much is like my last team in. I dropped Florida State out of the field after they lost to Georgia Tech, and I put Tulsa in. Tulsa has really been playing good basketball of late. They now have 3 top 50 victories to their resume. Their RPI numbers continue to go up. Their RPI now, I think, is like at 41. So their numbers are continuing to go up. So right now, I think Tulsa, for me, is in the field as one of the last 4 in at 17-9 out of the American. And I have them playing George Washington, 19-7 out of the A10. George Washington, yes, they've got some good wins, but they have some really bad losses too. George Washington is kind of very much a head-scratching team to me right now. So they are 19-7 out of the A10, but I have them kind of right now in that last 4 in group. So right now I have them on this 12 line with a play-in matchup with Tulsa. And then the 4-13, here's where I have North Carolina out of the ACC as a number 4, 21-5. They could have been in a much better position had they won that Duke game, but now, as a result, I had to drop them at least 1 seed line a little bit. So because, again, of other teams that struggled and teams did well, I had to put Duke in front of them, obviously, and then I had to move a couple teams around to accommodate that. So North Carolina 21-5, still a decent team, a decent seed, but on the nights that they're off, and it's tough. And Bryce Johnson had a ridiculous game against Duke, but he got no help from anybody else. Marcus Page was having an off night, and some of the other guys were having off nights. So it was just tough to see one guy try to carry that team and not get any supporting help, especially on a team as good as North Carolina can be. So I have them on the 4 line here, 21-5. I have them taking on Chattanooga, who this year has been the class of the Southern Conference. Again, mainly running the table in that conference. 24-4 record on the year. Very strong team. They can put up points in bunches if they get hot. So they could be another team that could potentially be a very scary double-digit seed depending on the matchup. Bottom half of the South here, the 6th seed, and again, this is a team that's really fallen on hard times of late, is Texas A&M. The Aggies really looked early on in the year like a elite, at least a top line, 3, 4 at least seed line early on in the year, but they have really hit the skids of late. Went through a slump of some big time losses. I think 3 or 4 losses in a row. Now they're down to 19-7, and while they're still for the moment safely in the field, we're not talking certainly bubble for Texas A&M yet. They should be in the field, but not now fully safe by any stretch. But certainly not in bubble territory yet. So 19-7, they're okay. I have them taking on, again, one of the first 4 games here this 11 line. Michigan out of the Big Ten. Michigan, it's kind of a hard thing. With Michigan, you really got to judge on the fact that they didn't have Karis LeVert for a while. He is back now. And I think if Michigan starts beating some of the top heavy teams in the Big Ten, I think Michigan will be out of this, last four in discussion. But their RPI is low at 54. Their strength of schedule isn't great. They're like 3-7 against the top 50. Like, I think it's even not as worse than that against the top 100. So that's what we're really concerned about Michigan. So you got, and I think you got to take that into account. That team that when they didn't have Karis LeVert, they struggled. So it just kind of really, and again, those numbers, these RPI teams, I do take that a little bit into account, and that's why I have them here on the 11 line at 19-8, and I haven't taken on VCU 19-7 out of the A10. Again, VCU, really good team, really fun team to watch. But again, when it comes to VCU, you look at the numbers, and it's kind of like, what? So I'm going to try, and I'm going to see if I can pull this up here for a minute. Yeah, let me pull this up real quick. If I look here at Michigan is RPI 54, strength of schedule of 73, 3-7 against top 50, 5-8 against the top 100, and they're only 500 on the road. They're 4-4 on the road. So yes, while they are 9-5 in the Big Ten, and that is good, and conference record is a little bit of a factor, you got to look at the whole body of work, and I think for me that's just a little bit concerning. And the Maryland win right now is probably their best win on paper. But again, the fact that Maryland just lost to Minnesota doesn't help Michigan's cause. The Purdue win is good, and the Texas win is very strong because Texas has a lot of wins. But other than that, they've had more opportunities and didn't take advantage of them. Same thing with Virginia Commonwealth. Same thing with VCU. You look at VCU's numbers. Yes, they are 11-2 in the A10 and tied for first place. But then you look at the rest of their body of work. 19-7. That's a good record. But RPI 56. Not exactly to a non-top 50 team. Strength of schedule at 88. Only 1-2 against the RPI top 50, with the only win coming against St. Joe's, and that win does look better every single day. But then you've also got 4-6 against the RPI top 100. So again, they've had opportunities to get bigger wins, and they haven't taken advantage of them. And oh, by the way, they do have a blemish on their resume. They lost to UMass, and I believe that loss was at home. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, but they lost to UMass. So that's why it's a couple things there that are concerning about those two teams' profiles. So that's why they're in this position right now for me. That the RPI number, the strength of schedule number, the lack of, in a way, especially in terms of VCU, the lack of quality wins, the not great top 100 record, and the fact that now VCU, I will say, is good on the road. VCU is a great road team. They're 6-2 on the road. But again, that blemish, the loss to UMass, only the one top 50 victory. That's why VCU is in this position. Michigan, they're in this position because of the fact that they were a different team without Karis LeVert, and the fact that those numbers against the top 50 and top 100 aren't that great, and they're not a great team on the road. So that's why they are in this position right now. Moving on in the South, 3-14, West Virginia out of the Big 12, 20-6. The Mountaineers, always a tough out in the Big 12. Very, very entertaining team to watch there as well. I haven't taken on UNC Wilmington. Right now, is it the Seahawks? I think I want to say Seahawks. Again, correct me if I'm wrong on the UNC Wilmington nickname. 19-6 out of the Colonial, the 14th seed here. They're really a good battle in the Colonial. The Colonial is actually an impressive conference. You got some good teams in the Colonial battling for this spot. I think James Madison's in the hunt. William & Mary is in the hunt. Hofstra. This has been a fun conference to watch. I've watched Hofstra once this year. I've watched William & Mary once this year. So these teams can get up and down the floor and score points. So that should be also a fun conference tournament to watch as well, to see who comes out of the Colonial. I think either – and especially for William & Mary. And again, William & Mary is another one of those teams that has never made the NCAA tournament. So they're right up there with Langston Northwestern and a couple other teams. I think it's 5 teams, that have never made the NCAA tournament in this era. So William & Mary would be again another great story. If they've never been in, if they can win the Colonial tournament and get in the field, it'd be great to see them snap that streak and get into the tournament field as well. But right now, Wilmington, I believe, leads by a game over Hofstra and William & Mary as well. 7-10, this would be a good matchup here. Cal out of the Pac-12, 18-8. Again, the Pac-12 playing well this year. Cal, a team that tends, can win some tough games also, but can also get up the floor. And Wisconsin, boy, I mean, what a turnaround. What a job that Greg Gard has done as the coach of Wisconsin. Can they just go ahead and give him the full-time job already, take the interim tag off? Wisconsin has completely turned us around. They're looking like a tournament team now. They have 4 top 50 wins now. And yes, the bad losses are still on the profile, of course. Those won't go away. I think they have like 3 or 4 sub 100 RPI losses. In fact, I'll go ahead and pull that up just to, to verify, like I'm not talking out of my butt or anything. So Wisconsin, now we look at Wisconsin, 8-5 on the year, 16-10 overall. The RPI now is just outside the top 50, 51. But I circled this. Strength of schedule, 10. Wisconsin has played the 10th hardest strength of schedule. That to me is a big number and a big factor when you look at Wisconsin's resume. Plus, you've got the 4 top 50 wins, 4-5 against top 50, but also another key stat, 9-6 against the RPI top 100. That is very impressive for Wisconsin. That means that really, when you look at other things, yes, they're 7-4 against everybody else below the RPI top 100, but 9-6, that is really saying something when it comes to Wisconsin. And yes, the road record is not great, also 4-4, but I tell you what, and yes, they lost to Michigan State last night, but they already beat Michigan State earlier this year, so really a split is not that bad for Wisconsin. You look at their 4 quality wins. Syracuse right now looks like a tournament team. Michigan State, a surefire tournament team. IU, a surefire tournament team right now. And Maryland, even though the Maryland lost to Minnesota, Maryland's going to be in the tournament field. So those are pretty much 4 wins against 4 sure tournament teams. Now, the 4 bad losses, yes, they are pretty bad. They lost to Northwestern. Northwestern right now, clearly, of course, is not a tournament team. They lost to Marquette. Marquette's RPI hovers barely below 100, as same with Northwestern. But then the 2 really bad losses were to Milwaukee, 151 RPI, and then the Western Illinois loss at the start of the year that stunned everybody, RPI 251. So really, when you think about it, Wisconsin, there's certainly a very intriguing bubble case. But right now, I think with what they've done right now, with those 4 strong victories, with the fact that they're 9-6 against top 100 teams, and they're doing well in the Big Ten, and this turnaround under Coach Greg Gard, I think they're not on the last 4 in line right now. I think that's why I have them on the 10 line. Yes, they are a bubble team, but they're a line above the last 4 in right now because of how well they have played of late. And that's what you got to take into consideration as well. So right now, Wisconsin's safe, at least in the 10 line discussion, not like fully safe like teams on the 9 line, but at least for now in a very decent position right now. Better than, again, some other teams like on the 11 and 12 situation. Wisconsin, what a turnaround for Wisconsin. And then the 215 here, Miami, the Canes currently in the ACC, 21-4 overall record. Again, another very entertaining team to watch there in the ACC. I am taking on Belmont. Belmont, the Bruins, 19-9 out of the Ohio Valley right now. Belmont playing, again, very good basketball, a team that can score, a dangerous team that when they get hot from the three-point line, they can actually, pull a surprise or two. So keep an eye on that as well. Keep an eye on Belmont. And then finally, the West region, last region here, top seed here is Oklahoma, 20-5 out of the Big 12. Buddy Hield, again, a fun player to watch play. He is going to be, if he goes pro, which I'm sure he probably will, but if once he gets to the league, he's going to be an entertaining player to watch. He just knows how to make plays every single night. Oklahoma, very entertaining team to watch. I am taking on Weber State right now. They are in a battle in the Big Sky with Montana right now. But right now, Weber State gets the nod here because they do have the better record than Montana does right now. So I think they're tied for the conference lead at 11-2. They both put up some pretty heady point numbers in the last games they played as well. So Weber State right now gets the nod with a 19-7 record. I think they have 1 loss less than Montana does. So that's why they are in the field right now. 8-9 matchup, 2 pretty decent teams here. Colorado out of the Pac-12, 19-8. Again, Colorado, the numbers very strong. Some good top 50 wins, very decent, very good resume for Colorado. And again, another team that really has surged of late is Alabama. In fact, let's look at these 2 teams' profiles here as well. And again, I'll talk about the Pac-12 here in general. Colorado, 8-6 in the Pac-12, 19-8 overall, RPI of 31. and a strength of schedule 37. Decent numbers there for Colorado. 3-7 against top 100. They've beaten Oregon State, fellow bubble team, but they've beaten Oregon. That's the big thing why Colorado is so safe, because they've knocked off an Oregon team that is third in the RPI. That's huge. So that's a big reason why Colorado is probably safer than some of these other teams right now in the Pac-12. And they've also beaten Cal, which is a nice win in and of itself, the fact that Cal has 5 top 50 wins. And no bad losses on Colorado's profile, none. No sub-100 losses. So that's a good thing to always have if you're Colorado. The road record is a little troubling, 4-5 on the road. But I think the Pac-12 usually tends to play better at home. Nobody really in the Pac-12 has a good road record anyway, unless it's, I think the only Pac-12 team I have in the field right now that has a good road record is Arizona, and they're leading the conference, right now. Arizona's 5-3 on the road, so no one else really has a good road record. So the Pac-12 tends to play very well in its own building. But again, you look at the Pac-12 as a whole right now. You look at these teams with RPIs. Arizona, the conference leader, is an RPI of 25. Oregon, 3. Utah, 16. USC, 23. California, 20. Colorado, 31. And Oregon State, who I have on the 10 line, at 36. So it just goes to show the magnitude of how well these teams play in the Pac-12. Now you look at Alabama. And Alabama, another team that has really come on strong of late, they have started racking up the top 50 wins in bunches. And oh, by the way, they're also finally above 500 in SEC play, which is huge for them, which is why right now Alabama's safely in the field on the 9 line. Alabama, 7-6 in the SEC, 16-9 overall, 32 in the RPI, very good. Again, the strength of schedule, 15, the 15th hardest schedule in the country. That's a big plus for Alabama as well. You've got 5 top 50 wins, 5-5 against the RPI top 50. Again, and that's 500, but still, that's better than probably a lot of teams would want 5-5 against the RPI top 50 right now. The Wichita State win, looking better all the time. And Wichita State, again, is kind of hovering around that 50 RPI range, but that win looks very good on paper. Beating Notre Dame, beating South Carolina, a team with 3 top 50 wins, beating Texas A&M, a team that, yes, is struggling, but still has 4 top 50 wins to their claim, and then knocking off that same Florida team that is playing well all year. So you've got 5 really good wins. Really only got 1 blemish on the profile, and that was losing to Auburn. But Auburn of late has actually also played quite well as well. I think they just won at Arkansas recently, and even though Arkansas not exactly a great team by any stretch, those RPIs, they're all hovering around 100. Auburn's hovering around 100, Tennessee's around 100, even Arkansas is hovering around 100 RPI. So that really, while yes, it is a sub 100 loss, it's really not a very damning loss by any stretch. So, and they play decent, and they're 5-5 on the road, so 500 record on the road. So right now, check mark, check mark, check mark, green check marks all across the board for Alabama. They are looking in a very good position right now. So if Alabama keeps that up, and if they keep winning these big games, Alabama's going to be in a great position come tournament time. If they might have to make maybe a deep run in the SEC tourney just to have like a sure sense of safety. But for the most part, they're going to be, I think in really good position if they keep doing what they're doing right now. 5-12 in the West, Notre Dame out of the ACC, 18-7 overall. The Irish, always a fun team to watch play as well. I am taking on San Diego State. The Aztecs right now really look to be the only team that's going to come out of the Mountain West unless they lose the conference tournament. If San Diego State loses the conference tournament, I can't see them getting an at-large bid because, again, the numbers are so low. And, again, we'll look here at San Diego State's profile. 12-1 in the conference, 19-7 overall record, RPI 48, strength of schedule 62. So, again, kind of those middle-of-the-road numbers. They only have the 1 top 50 win. Well, the 1 top 50 win is good. They did beat Cal, which is nice. But 1-4 against the top 50, 3-5 against the top 100. They do play well on the road. They're 6-2 in true road games. But they have 3 really bad losses on the slate. They lost – or no, I'm sorry. They have 2 sub-100 losses. I'm sorry. Let me fix that. Because technically they lost to Grand Canyon – but Grand Canyon does have a top 100 RPI, and they are technically, right in the hunt in the WAC. But Grand Canyon isn't eligible this year because I think they're still doing the transition from Division I to full Division I status. So they're in that transition period. But they lost to Fresno State, RPI 111, and then the really bad loss is losing to San Diego with an RPI of 288. So that one was really bad. So San Diego State probably will not get in if they don't win the Mountain West tourney. But right now, they've head and shoulders look like the best team in the Mountain West. Maybe you put Boise State in this schedule, but Boise State lately has some really questionable losses. So right now, San Diego State seems to be the safest bet from the Mountain West. 4-13 matchup, Dayton, I just mentioned them, the fact that they, lost to St. Joe's, 21-4, but still a good team out of the A-10. Dayton, we remember Dayton when they made that deep run in the tournament a couple years ago as I think a 7 seed or something like that. They made that really deep tournament run, impressed everybody. So Dayton knows how to play. They won't be playing in Dayton this year. I can tell you that. They won't be playing in their home arena this year. In the first 4, they'll be playing, legitimately. Or they were in 11. They were like an 11 seed, and they made that deep run because they were in the first 4. That's right. But they're a good team this year. They are a very good team to watch. 21-4 to the A-10. I have them taking on IPFW. Took the Summit lead last night. The Mastodons, yes. IPFW 21-7, knocked off South Dakota State at home, and in impressive fashion, by the way, like 91-79. Huge win for the Mastodons to take over first place. South Dakota State won't get in the field, by the way. Their RPI is very good. Their RPI is at 44, but they won't get in the field as an at-large, I don't think, unless they win the conference tournament. I think they have to win the tourney to get in. So, but right now the Mastodons leading the Summit with that win over the Jackrabbits. So good on you, Mastodons. Good win. Bottom half of the West, 6-11. Could be a fun matchup here. Again, I mentioned Texas and Shaka Smart, the job that he has done at Texas. Great job for Shaka Smart and the Longhorns. 17-9 out of the Big 12. See, I always knew he could do it better, do just as well a job he did at VCU. But I knew it. I never lost faith in Shaka Smart. 17-9. Again, I believe Texas is like 6 top 50 victories, which is massive in and of itself. And I think their RPI is like a 20. So I'm going to validate to make sure that I'm right on that because I want to make sure I get that right. Yeah, 6-6 against the top 50. And oh, by the way, they've beaten West Virginia twice, and not many teams can say that. 22 RPI, third toughest strength of schedule. 11 wins against the RPI top 100. That is just nasty. They've beaten North Carolina. They've beaten Iowa State. As I mentioned, West Virginia twice. Baylor. And they've beaten Texas Tech, who is coming on strong. That one looks better. And they only have the one bad loss to TCU. So they are legit. They're legit. What more can you say? Texas is legit. I am taking on Gonzaga. 21-6. Gonzaga once again is right now the class of the West Coast Conference. Although St. Mary's or even BYU could have something to say about that in the conference tournament. Both those teams are kind of hovering in that 70 RPI range right now. So they're certainly in the mix for at-large consideration, but right now Gonzaga is the class of the conference, and they I think won again last night. So they right now leading the way. I think they're like a game and a half ahead of St. Mary's if I'm not mistaken. So right now they are in the West Coast driver's seat. 3-14. I have Michigan State out of the Big Ten. What's the saying? Never bet against Tom Izzo in March. And him right now, the job that he's done, and Denzel Valentine, what a joy that he is to watch. 22-5 right now in Big Ten play. I am taking on Hawaii right now, leading the Big West at 21-3. Although don't fall asleep on the UC Irvine Anteaters. Don't fall asleep on them. They're right in the mix. They're in the discussion. They are hovering. I think they're just a game out of the Big West lead, and we know last year they nearly knocked off Louisville in the first round. So don't be surprised if they find their way in again this year. They are very much in the discussion. But Hawaii has also been playing very good basketball. They won again last night. They won at Northridge. I think they trailed for at least part of the first half, and they rallied back to win that game. So got to commend Hawaii for the job that they have done there as well. 7-10, South Carolina out of the SEC, 21-5 on the year. Again, another very fun team to watch. The job that Frank Martin has done there has been outstanding. And I have them taking on Seton Hall. And Seton Hall is in the same position that it was last year. Seton Hall is very much a bubbly team. Last year they didn't make the field, I don't think. But once again, they're in that same position again this year. We take a look here at Seton Hall's profile. 8-5 in the Big East, that's very good. 18-7 record, yes, very, very good. But then you look at the numbers, 43 in the RPI, that's at least in the top 50, so that's always good. But 68 strength of schedule, right now the worst of the teams that I have in the field from the Big East. And then you look at the other numbers, 2-4 against the top 50. But really their top 50 wins are kind of very because you have Providence team that's been on the decline of late, but still a good win. And then the Wichita State win again. Looks good at times, not so good at others because they're kind of hovering around that 50 line. So two decent top 50 wins, But other than that, nothing real flashy about Seton Hall. But 7-7 against top 100. That's really, to me, the big thing about Seton Hall. They have a 500 record against the top 100. No bad losses on the profile. And oh, by the way, they do play well on the road. 5-3 in true road games. So that's really what keeps Seton Hall, at least for me, above the last four in line. I think for now, Seton Hall is okay. They've looked pretty good in games of late, so they're playing well of late. So that's, to me, is a big factor. So that's why I have Seton Hall on the 10 line right now. Certainly not again, I have them here as kind of the weakest of the 10 teams. Maybe not the weakest. I'd say probably Pitt or Wisconsin. Well, I'd say Oregon State is the safest 10, then maybe Wisconsin, and then probably kind of Pitt and Seton Hall kind of scratching and clawing for that, least safe team on the 10 line. But I would say probably Seton Hall is the least safe right now because of the fact that those two top 50 wins don't look as impressive as some of their fellow counterparts. So one bad loss would probably knock Seton Hall down to the last four in line. So right now, okay, but kind of be leery if you're a Seton Hall fan right now. And then the 2-15 matchup here, Oregon out of the Pac-12, 20-6, still a very good team on the year. That third RPI, I believe, they've also played the toughest schedule. So Oregon definitely very good numbers in terms of the committee's eyes. And I haven't taken on New Mexico State. The Aggies leading the WAC right now. They held on in that WAC lead last night with a big win over Cal State Bakersfield, who was, I think, like a game back in the discussion. So 19-9 in the WAC. Of course, with Grand Canyon being ineligible this year, that means that right now New Mexico State, I believe they're a game ahead anyway of Grand Canyon. But right now, New Mexico State firmly entrenched as the top team in the WAC. All right, so that is the projected field that I have right now. Again, kind of looking at the bubble scope here real quick, I will break down this for you again. My last four buys right now are Oregon State, Seton Hall, Pittsburgh, and Wisconsin. And again, those can rotate. And I listed those. I list those in this regard though by RPI. So right now, Oregon State at 36, Seton Hall's at 43, Pitt's at 47, Wisconsin's at 51. But I would say right now, probably of those four teams, Seton Hall's probably I'd say Oregon State is safest, then probably Wisconsin, and then I'd say Pitt and Seton Hall kind of fighting for that last spot. But I'd say right now, Seton Hall is probably the weakest of that bunch. My last four teams in are Michigan, Virginia Commonwealth, Tulsa, and George Washington. And Tulsa's the newest addition to that bunch. And Michigan kind of dropped this line after their RPI stumbled a bit. But right now, I'd say for those four teams, it's going to be critical to win games moving on down the stretch if they want to be in a better position moving forward. Now, here are my teams that are currently out of the field. Here are my first four teams that are out. And I mentioned how I had to drop Florida State to the first four outline. I dropped them out of the field after the loss to Georgia Tech. They're now 16-10. Their RPI plummeted from somewhere in the 40s down to 63 after that loss to Georgia Tech. And they lost that game at home. So that really hurt Florida State's cause. So right now, 63 RPI, 55 strength of schedule. They're 2-7 against the top 50, but the more glaring number, 5-10 against top 100. So yes, no bad losses, but you have opportunities to win the big games and you don't. That's really hurts Florida State's profile. Butler I've out of the field right now, 18-8. Again, the numbers for me just too low for Butler. 58 RPI, 81 strength of schedule. Really all Butler has going for them in terms of big wins that win over Purdue. That's really all they've got riding on them. The Seton Hall win is a top 50 win, but in a way it's really not a great win because, again, Seton Hall is a bubble team. So that really hurts Butler's cause right now. Washington, another team that, on paper may look good, but record-wise not so great. 15-11. The RPI at 75. Now, what Washington does have going for them is a good strength of schedule. Again, these Pac-12 teams have these good schedules. 22 on the strength of schedule. So they have that going for them. And they have 3 top 50 wins. But again, 7-10 against top 100. That really worries me about Washington. They've had these missed opportunities to win top 50 games. And then Clemson. Clemson is, again, at one of the more strange bubble teams I've ever seen because Clemson had this stretch where they were really, really good. And other times this year they were really, really bad. Clemson is 16-10. Their RPI is 96, which really isn't really warrant consideration. But then you got to take this into account. 5-5 against the top 50. 5 top 50 wins, and some of those wins very, very good wins. 7-7 against top 100. But again, where it hurts, those 3 bad losses, the 2-6 road record, and there's just those low RPI numbers really hurt Clemson in the long run right now. So certainly in the mix, but not really in a great position right now. Clemson really would have to make some noise in the ACC tournament, I think, to really warrant any hard look at inclusion in the tournament field. And then my next 4 teams out, Cincinnati. A lot of people have mixed thoughts on Cincinnati. Cincinnati, yes, is 19-7, but again, I look at those low numbers, an RPI of 60, a strength of schedule at 97. That really, to me, hurts Cincinnati's cause. They do have 3 top 50 wins. They're 5-7 against top 100. That's decent. 5-5 on the road. Yes, that's good. But oh boy, those numbers and the fact they play in the American, I don't know. Cincinnati to me is a very odd team to me. And I think, if they can get maybe one more top 50 winner under the belt and make a deep run in the American tourney, I think we're going to take a harder look here at Cincinnati. LSU is again a very odd bubble case. 16-10 on the year. They're my 6th team out. 81 RPI again, which is very low to be considered. 63 though in the strength of schedule is good, not great. But they do have the 3 top 50 wins. They are 6-6 against top 100. That's a very good thing for LSU to have. But they struggle on the road, 3-5 away from home. So that, along with the fact that the record and those low RPI numbers hurt LSU right now. St. Bonaventure, it's kind of the same situation, being out of the A10, 17-7. But St. Bonaventure just suffered a really bad loss. They have 2 bad losses now in the season. 52 the RPI, 91 strength of schedule. I think they lost to Duquesne. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's who they just lost to, and that's a bad loss. So, but only 2 top 50 wins, 4-5 top 100, not good there. And then I have William and Mary in the 8th spot, and really William and Mary is in this 8th spot just by default because really there's nobody else that's really separated themselves from the pack to be in this 8th spot. Really, the only reason William and Mary is here at 18-8 is because the record, the fact they're playing well in the Colonial, the 53 RPI. They have no top 50 wins to their credit, and they're 2-5 against top 100, but somebody's got to be in this 8th spot. And for me, they're the highest RPI team, so I put William and Mary there. Other teams that I am considering in the field right now include, and really it's just by RPI order or the fact that they have top 50 wins. Vanderbilt has 3 top 50 wins. They're at 65. Davidson, 66 RPI, but the problem, no top 50 wins, no even top 100 wins for Davidson, by the way. St. Mary's, I mentioned them, good record, 21-4, but no top 50 wins and a terrible strength of schedule at 200. BYU, again, same situation, 20-8, 68 RPI, but no top 50 wins. Kansas State, a 70 RPI, but 2-10 against top 50 and 4-10 top 100, not good enough, and 2-7 on the road. Hofstra, 19-8, 72 RPI, and decent record on the road at 8-4, but again, no top 50 wins. UC Irvine, 20-7, but no top 50 wins, but they are 73 in the RPI. Georgia, 14-10 record, 74 in the RPI, but yikes, 1-7 against top 50. UCLA is now off the board, 14-12 record, not good enough, 77 RPI. They do have 3 top 50 wins, but not good enough. And just barely off the board are teams like Arizona State at 82, Creighton at 83, Ole Miss at 86, Georgetown at 87, and Houston bringing up the rear at 88. All right, guys, that is it for me this week. I'm so glad I got this live streaming thing to work. Not using, instead of using Periscope, I was debating on using it. It didn't work, so I'm glad I found this. I found another way to do it. Again, thank you guys as always so much for the support, for the subscribers. You guys truly are awesome. You guys keep me, doing these on a weekly, hopefully with this show, weekly basis. I hope to put up more brackets going forward as we get closer to conference tournament time. So stay tuned on that. Hopefully a new bracket next week. If not, then it will be around conference tournament time. The conference tournaments start March 1st. So hopefully it will be very, very close to that time where I have a new bracket projection and video up for you guys. I will hopefully be doing these live streaming now, so I'll give a heads up to that on my Twitter as well. Thank you guys, as always, so much. You guys rock, and we will see you again next time for another edition of Tracking the Madness for my 4th video projection. If you guys have any thoughts at all on, who you want to share your last 4 in, first 4 out teams, if you have any comments on any teams that I talked about in the video, anything at all, please feel free. Don't hesitate to leave a comment down below in the comment box or on the discussion page on my channel. I will check that out. I always check my Gmail to see if you guys are commenting. Thank you guys so much, and we will see you again hopefully next week or close to March 1st. Thanks, guys. God bless.